As American combat aircraft evolved from extensions of the pilot's body to autonomous predators, what was truly gained and what essential part of humanity was lost? This historical arc traces the pilot's transformation from an intuitive duelist in machines like the P-51 Mustang to a systems manager in the F-4 Phantom, where combat became a transaction mediated by radar and computers. This pact was deepened with fly-by-wire technology and the godlike invisibility of stealth fighters like the F-22, turning the warrior into a custodian of a force they no longer fully controlled. With a future of AI-driven swarms on the horizon, the human is poised to be removed from the equation entirely. As we stand on the verge of removing the pilot from the cockpit for good, what new ghost will we be sending to haunt the heavens in our place?
What is it truly that we ask of the sky when we send a weapon into it? Is it just dominion? You know, a viewpoint where the world looks like a simple map and all the complexity is just gone, reduced to targets and threats.
Or is it maybe something, well, deeper, something more primal, like this real yearning we have to somehow graft wings onto ourselves, you know, to get above the mud in the trenches, touch something cleaner. Yeah,
exactly. Because if you really look closely at the history of the American fighter aircraft, it's not just a straight line of better machines. You find something else. It's like, one of our sources for today, The Ghost in the Machine, A Fighter's Evolution, puts it really well. It calls it a kind of scripture, but written in aluminum and titanium. It's this chronicle of like a soul that's constantly negotiating, often in really dangerous ways. So this isn't just about tech getting better. It's a deep, almost spiritual journey, you could say.
Absolutely. It's humanity grappling with these things we create. And it's kind of a haunting story, isn't it? How the warrior, trying to conquer the skies, sort of slowly gives himself over to the logic of the machine he built.
Right.
And this journey, like our other main source, Wings of Shadows, American Combat Aircraft History, points out, it's so much more than just the metal and the wings. These planes, in a lot of ways, they're mirrors. Mirrors of America itself. They reflect the nation's ambition, that restless drive for technological dominance. They almost seem to carry this destiny beyond the people who made them, embodying the national spirit up there in the air. So our mission, really, in this deep dive for you listening, is to pull out the most important ideas, the key takeaways from these great sources.
We want to give you a shortcut, essentially.
Exactly, a shortcut to understanding this incredible, really intricate journey. Sort of a conceptual flight path, you know, from the early days where the man was the machine all the way to today where the machine is almost becoming a kind of god.
Right. And we promise you'll have some real aha moments. We're going to make a clear path through what could be some pretty dense history and philosophy. You won't feel overwhelmed. We'll make sure of that. We'll break down the complex stuff, make it easy to grasp so anyone listening can really follow this story of innovation and, well, transformation.
Yeah, make it accessible.
Okay, let's unpack this because, like you said, this isn't just a story of planes. It's really a story about us. So our journey kicks off in what we can maybe call the Age of Incarnation. This is the era where the ghost, that human element, was still very much tied to the flesh. The man was, without a doubt, the heart of the machine.
Right.
To picture at the very beginning of military flight, not the roar of modern jets, but the rasp of canvas pulled tight on wooden frames, the hum of wind whistling through bracing wires. Our sources paint this really vivid picture, these early planes, often just described as delicate cages, wood, fabric,
water. They're fragile.
Yeah, incredibly fragile. And inside, a human body, just suspended there, totally exposed to the elements. For those early pilots, the air wasn't something to push through. It was a medium, something you felt reacted to with every nerve, every instinct.
We're in it.
Completely. Yeah. Think about those early fighters from World War I, the French Nieuports, the Brigades, the British Sopwith Camels. American pilots flew a lot of these borrowed planes back then. They weren't just tools. They were like visceral extensions of the pilot's own nervous system.
A direct link.
Imagine the feeling the shudder of the airframe right in your bones.
Yeah.
A direct transmission of every bump, every gust, smelling the hot castor oil from the engines, that sharp tang of gasoline.
Wow.
And amazingly, pilots said they could tell the exact moment a stall was coming just by how the wind song changed as it went past the cockpit rim.
Incredible sensory feedback.
Right. These were flimsy things, really. Yeah. Wood, wire, doped fabric. The risk of just disintegrating, of obliteration, wasn't just possible as a constant companion. Even later, in the Golden Age, between the wars, planes like the Boeing P-26 pea shooter, they were more advanced, sure, but still had a lot of that raw, untamed feel.
And what's so fascinating there is that direct feedback loop you're describing. The machine was, well, it was like a temperamental horse, almost alive in a way.
Yeah.
And the pilot was the knight, constantly having to read it, manage its power. Combat wasn't this distant button-pushing thing. It was a joust.
The joust, I like that.
Yeah, incredibly visceral, really intimate. Survival came down to split-second human reflexes, pure intuition sometimes. The enemy wasn't just a blip on a screen. Often it was another guy you could actually see, maybe even see his face for a second against the sun before that terrifying ballet of machine guns started.
Wow.
It was a totally direct, physical, sensory connection. Immediate response, no buffers, completely relying on the human at the center to figure it out and take charge.
And this whole philosophy, this really deep connection between the human and the machine, probably reached its peak, its most perfect expression, during World War II, specifically with the P-51 Mustang.
Ah, the Mustang, legendary.
Absolutely. Our sources describe it not just as a weapon system, which it was, of course, but almost like a prosthetic, like the plane itself was a biological extension of the pilot. Its engine, that famous Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, pilots consistently called it a thunderous heart. Incredible power, incredible endurance.
You hear the stories.
And its guns, the 6-50 cals, pilots called them steel fists, just devastating firepower, delivered with precision. But the real magic was its responsiveness. Pilots would say its soul was in that synaptic link between what they intended and how the control surfaces responded. Instantly, breathtakingly.
That synaptic link, explain that a bit more.
Right, good point. So think about your brain. A synaptic link is that super fast connection between nerve cells, how signals jump across to coordinate thoughts, movements, everything. So in the Mustang, it means the pilot's thought and the plane's movement were so tightly connected, they felt like one thing. Almost no delay, no feeling of the plane interpreting anything. The pilot thinks it, the Mustang does it, with this incredible speed and grace.
Got it. So it's like thought translating instantly into action through the machine.
Exactly. That kind of responsiveness was revolutionary, created this incredibly strong bond between the pilot and the plane.
Yeah, and the Mustang wasn't just fast or powerful, it was like an athlete, you know, a duelist. It demanded this constant conversation with the pilot, this back and forth of instinct and feedback.
Right.
Getting a kill wasn't some anonymous event miles away. It was deeply personal. You earned it through mastering energy, angles. It was as much art as it was science. And the P-51, it became more than just an amazing weapon. It quickly became this cultural artifact, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was everywhere. Wartime posters, newsreels in the cinemas.
Kids' imaginations.
Totally. It became this enduring symbol of American ingenuity, American daring.
And it really highlights that core bargain of the era, doesn't it?
It does. The machine gives the man wings, this incredible power and reach. And the man, in return, he gives the machine his courage, his perception, his reflexes. And tragically, far too often, his life. It's a powerful, almost, tragic exchange. It says so much about the human cost back then.
It really does. And it brings up that paradox, that tension you see again and again in combat aviation. How can something so elegant, so beautifully engineered, almost like a work of art, be designed for and carry out such devastation? These were magnificent flying machines, but their purpose was ultimately destruction. It's this constant thread where the human consciousness was still firmly tied to the body, but its purpose was becoming increasingly lethal.
But even then, picture it. Sun glinting off a polished canopy miles up. Even then, there was this whisper of a different future coming. A future where human senses just weren't going to be enough anymore. So what happens then? What happens when that duel turns into a cold calculation? When the enemy isn't a tiny speck in your gun sight anymore, but maybe just a fleeting blip on a green screen?
Yeah, that brings us to this really pivotal shift, this era that our sources call the severing.
Because the arrival of jet technology, it just completely shattered the old human scale of combat. The jet engine, the swept wing, they didn't just break the sound barrier. They fundamentally rewrote the rules of air warfare.
A whole new game.
Totally. Our sources point to the Korean War as this critical moment, this brutal testing ground for the new jets. Up there, over the Yalu River, you had the American F-86 Sabre facing the Soviet MiG-15.
A classic matchup.
And those duels were described not just as contests of skill, though skill was still vital, but as raw contests of speed and altitude. pushing the pilot's body right to its absolute physiological limits. These things flew faster, climbed higher, turned tighter than anything before. It created an environment that just started to overwhelm human perception.
And that era was so symbolic, wasn't it? Almost like the Cold War itself playing out in the sky. Every dogfight was more than just combat. It was ideology made physical. Democracy versus communism in these incredible acrobatic spirals.
Wow, ideology given form. That's a powerful way to put it.
Yeah, it wasn't just planes fighting. It was systems, ideas, grappling for dominance up there. And for the pilot, the world outside the cockpit, it became less distinct, more of a blur. Just streaks of blue and brown, deep hills lost to sheer speed. They were suddenly dealing with an environment that moved too fast for the eyes, too violently for the body.
And that's precisely where it changes everything for the pilot. The senses, right? The things they always trusted implicitly, suddenly they start to lie, or at least they become totally inadequate.
Yeah.
The eye can't judge distance accurately enough for these high-speed passes. The ear, deafened by the constant scream of the turbine. The body, crushed by G-forces that were just unimaginable before, constantly threatening blackout at the worst possible moment.
Just too much.
Yeah, the sheer speed and altitude created this environment that was simply too extreme for unaided human perception to handle effectively.
Exactly. So faced with this new, really unforgiving reality, a new kind of bargain had to be struck. But it was on very different terms, less intimate, you could say.
How so?
Well, just to survive, let alone win in this new violent environment, the pilot had to start giving up parts of his perception, parts of his judgment to the machine itself. This wasn't just about getting better tools. It was about integrating fundamentally new systems. Radar becomes crucial. The G-suit to stop blackouts. And critically, the guided missile.
Guided missiles, a huge step.
Huge. And our sources describe these not just as aids, but as the first real stirrings of a new kind of consciousness, an inorganic consciousness. They acted as filters, interpreters, making sense of a reality that was just too fast, too vast for the human brain alone. It was like a cognitive extension, but one that subtly started to put distance between the pilot and the raw experience.
Okay, let's make sure we nail down that idea of inorganic consciousness. What we mean is the technology itself starts interpreting reality for the pilot, right?
Exactly.
Seeing things, making calculations way faster, more accurately than any human could. The machine starts to think for itself in a basic way. It translates this world that's become too fast and too vast into something the pilot can actually use actionable data. That shift, even if subtle at first, was massive.
And no aircraft from that time really embodies this split, this severing, more than the F-4 Phantom Pendant. It was the absolute brute icon of the Vietnam era. Our sources call it a masterpiece of thrust and power, basically a missile-packed battering ram. It wasn't designed for elegant, close-in dogfighting like the Sabre. Its whole philosophy was overwhelm from a distance, mainly using missiles.
It's a different kind of flying.
Very different. Pilots talked about it with, awe for its sheer power, but also this kind of quiet resentment for what it lacked. It didn't have the grace of the Sabre or that tactile feel, that intimacy of the Mustang. It wasn't a partner. It was a complex system you had to manage. A demanding equation radar modes, weapon settings requiring constant attention, but maybe offering less of that direct visceral satisfaction.
So that's the severing right there. That direct gut-level connection between the pilot's will and the act of destruction. It gets stretched thin. It's mediated now by glowing radar scopes, by the cold logic of fire control computers. The kill isn't that personal dance anymore. It's, like the sources say, it becomes a transaction.
A transaction, yeah.
You paint a target on your radar scope. You hear that distinct electronic lock-on tone in your headset, like an electronic snake hiss, pilots called it. Then you press a button. Launch a missile.
And miles away.
Miles away. An explosion rips another plane apart. An explosion you probably won't see or hear directly. You just get confirmation from your instruments.
Wow.
So, I mean, was it still profound violence? Of course it was. But it was violence that got laundered through layers of technology, abstracted, turned into a problem of geometry and electronics. Not that direct personal confrontation anymore. It becomes this remote, almost clinical execution. The pilot's emotional and physical closeness to the act of killing just shrinks dramatically.
Indeed. The pilot was becoming less like that knight in a joust, and maybe more like a priest, interpreting the will of this machine god he served, performing these complex rituals, maybe not always fully understanding every nuance, to achieve effects he couldn't directly see or feel.
That's a powerful analogy.
If you connect that to the bigger picture, you really see the ghost. that human agency, that direct perception starting to detach, floating free from the vulnerable human body. It was learning to see with electronic eyes, think in the language of algorithms. The man's still in the cockpit physically, but he's starting to feel like a guest in his own house, relying more and more on what the machine tells him.
And here's where it gets really interesting too. This era also saw America chasing raw speed, like it was the ultimate answer, like speed itself was salvation. A kind of technological religion.
Right, faster is always better.
Exactly. Planes like the F-100 Super Sabre push the limits. But nothing quite like the F-104 Starfighter. It makes you ask, what if progress itself becomes a trap?
The Starfighter.
Yeah, our sources call it the missile with a man in it. Famously. It was so narrow, so sharp, basically a fuselage with these tiny stubby wings. It looked extreme because it was extreme.
Built for speed.
Purely. Pilots whispered about how lethal it was, not just to the enemy, but tragically often to themselves. It was this uncompromising design, speed and climb rate above everything else, often with terrible consequences. It's a stark example of pushing limits, maybe too far, searching for that ultimate edge.
A dangerous trade-off.
Yeah, the focus on raw performance, sometimes at the expense of handling or safety, showed there were trade-offs, and sometimes they were just too steep.
It's a critical point. It shows that raw speed wasn't the only answer, and sometimes it created new problems, new vulnerabilities. It also hammered home how the pilot's role was changing. They weren't just flying anymore. They were managing these incredibly complex, sometimes temperamental systems that push them way beyond natural human limits. That ghost, the human consciousness inside, was becoming even more dependent on the machine's capabilities, even as those capabilities got more demanding. And that really sets the stage for the next big shift, where the digital world really merges with the physical.
Okay, now let's shift gears. Think about a different kind of quiet. Imagine the charged humming silence inside an F-15 Eagle, cruising at 60,000 feet. It's not peaceful silence. It's this deep hum of massive coiled potential. Outside, the air's thin, freezing cold. The sky's this bruised purple, maybe dotted with stars even during the day. Inside, the pilot's wrapped in this bubble of life support pressure, oxygen. But the real environment he's operating in, it's not physical anymore. It's an environment woven purely from data. This is the era of the ghost in the algorithm.
Data becomes the reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His helmet-mounted display, revolutionary tech back then, isn't just showing basic speed and altitude. It overlays the real world with this rich layer of symbols, vectors, numbers. The sky stops being just empty space. It becomes a dynamic, rendered battle space.
Right.
Other planes aren't just specks anymore. They're color-coded icons on his tactical display. Their intentions, their flight paths, predicted by this incredibly powerful computer thinking at light speed. Just try to imagine that, seeing the world, not just with your eyes, but with this transparent digital layer constantly telling you exactly what you need to know, faster than you could ever figure it out yourself.
A fusion of senses.
Yeah, a fusion of human vision and machine data. It was a total game changer.
And what's truly fascinating here is how the fighters of this generation, we're talking the F-15 Eagle, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, the F-A-18 Hornet, they were designed around this radical, kind of counterintuitive idea, inherent instability.
Inherent instability. Okay, break that down for us. Sounds bad.
Yeah, it does sound bad, but it was actually key to their agility. So simplify it like this. Imagine designing a race car that's so incredibly responsive, so nimble, that it's always like right on the verge of spinning out.
Okay.
A human driver, no matter how skilled, couldn't possibly keep it under control without constantly, exhaustingly overcorrecting every tiny twitch. These amazing planes, they were built to be exactly that agile, so responsive that no human could fly them safely without the constant millisecond by millisecond help of a very sophisticated flight control computer.
So the computer is actually flying the plane, in a way.
In a very real way, yes. The pilot isn't directly flying it in the old mechanical sense. Instead, he makes a request. He moves the stick or rudder, and that's a request to this digital consciousness, the flight control computer. The computer then translates those frankly crude human inputs into impossibly precise, lightning-fast adjustments of the wings, the tail, everything. The pilot stick isn't physically linked to the control surfaces anymore. It's linked to a processor, a digital brain. And this represented a kind of Faustian bargain, renewed and deepened. To get this almost godlike maneuverability, this incredible responsiveness, the pilot gave up that last bit of direct physical authority. He became more like a senior partner, a strategic director maybe.
But the computer gets the final say.
Exactly. The computer had the final say. It could, and it absolutely would, ignore a pilot's command if it calculated the command would put the aircraft in danger, like pull too many Gs or enter a stall. The machine's survival, its integrity came first, even over the pilot's direct input in those extreme moments.
And this digital nervous system, it wasn't just about flying. It fused everything together, the radar, the missiles, the flight controls, into one single cohesive weapon system.
Right. Integrated.
Think about the S-15's motto, not a pound for air to ground. That was like a theological statement, wasn't it? Pure focus on air dominance.
Total commit.
It's powerful radar. The advanced Sparrow and Sidewinder missiles. The flight computer. They were all designed to work together seamlessly, like parts of a single integrated mind. The pilot's job within this complex web of logic, it was to be that essential human spark, that intuition.
Your creative leap.
Exactly. The unpredictable creative leap, the strategic insight that a machine couldn't provide. Well, not yet anyway. He was the ultimate decision maker, yes, but operating within a reality defined and presented by the machine.
So what does this all mean for us listening and for the pilots flying these things? It brings up that really critical question again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When the machine can see further, think faster, react more precisely than the human inside it, what exactly is the human for? Is he still the master? Or is he becoming the most complicated and maybe therefore the most fallible part of a system that's increasingly running itself?
It's a heavy question.
A key takeaway from this time is that the ghost in the machine, it wasn't just a passenger anymore. It was quickly becoming a co-pilot, and its whispered suggestions were turning into commands. And this intense focus on air dominance, on the technological edge, it also led to another major shift in thinking. Vietnam had shown, pretty brutally, that sheer speed and power weren't always enough.
Right. Jungle canopies hide things.
Exactly. Dense jungles mocked radar. Small, elusive enemies could make billion-dollar jets seem vulnerable, like big, loud targets. So America, maybe humbled a bit but still determined, started looking for something even more fundamental than just ruling the air. They started seeking invisibility within the air.
Stealth.
Stealth technology, which really did feel like science fiction coming to life. The F-117 Nighthawk, America's first operational stealth plane. It was just bizarre looking.
Like something out of a movie.
Totally. A collection of flat panels and sharp angles, broken geometry. It didn't look like it should fly. But those jagged lines, those flat facets, they were designed specifically to absorb radar waves or deflect them away from the source. Made it almost invisible to enemy sensors, like it was carved out of absence itself.
If you ever saw one, which was rare, it really felt like technology had crossed over into sorcery, like technological magic.
Yeah, and yet stealth, at least in that first version, it came with this big paradox. The Nighthawk, unbelievably stealthy, but it wasn't agile at all, couldn't dogfight, it wasn't versatile.
Specialized.
Very specialized. Fragile, secretive, used carefully, surgically, but just its existence completely changed military thinking around the world. The main question for air forces everywhere shifted. It wasn't who flies fastest or who has the most powerful engines anymore.
It became
who can disappear the best.
Right.
And later, in the shadow of the Cold War, came the B-2 Spirit bomber. Another ghost. A flying wing, no real fuselage, just this whisper drifting across the sky. Seeing that thing, usually at night, it was like seeing a myth made real, like a raven cut from night itself.
Incredible machines. But as amazing as those were, the journey takes an even deeper, maybe more profound turn with the fifth-generation fighters. Now, invisibility isn't just a tactic. It becomes this deep philosophical proposition that changes the very nature of war. This brings us right into the idea of tactical godhood, an era that's really haunted by an ancient story. And here's where it gets really interesting. There's this powerful myth, Plato tells it in the Republic, about a shepherd named Gyges. He finds this magic ring, right? Makes him invisible.
The ring of Gyges.
Exactly. And because he's unseen, totally unaccountable, he uses this power to kill the king, seduce the queen, seize the throne. The key thing is the ring doesn't make him evil. It just removes the consequences, the social checks that kept his darker side under control.
Right, power corrupts.
When there are no checks.
Yeah.
And this myth, our sources argue, it hangs over the fifth generation of American fighters, the F-22 Raptor, the F-35 Lightning II. This is the age of absolute stealth.
And these planes, the F-22, the F-35, they really are, as the sources say, more than just aircraft. They're philosophical propositions.
Explain that. What does that mean, a philosophical proposition?
It means they embody these big ideas. Ideas about power, about morality, about the very nature of conflict itself. They challenge centuries of thinking about what combat is. Their strange shapes, all those angled facets and sawtooth edges, they're not for looks or even traditional aerodynamics. They are designed meticulously for one main purpose. Invisibility.
To be ghosts.
To be ghosts.
Yeah.
To slip through enemy sensors like they're not even there. To erase their own presence, giving the pilot this tactical impunity, this freedom from consequence that just has no precedent in history.
So flying a Raptor or an F-25, it's wielding a power totally different from anything before. You're a predator that can't be seen, holding life and death over an enemy who not only doesn't see you, but often has no idea they're even in a fight until it's way too late.
It's an asymmetry that just rewrites the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
The cockpit of an F-22, described in our sources, it's called a sanctuary of serene, lethal omniscience.
Wow. Serene and lethal.
Yeah. Its sensor fusion systems, they pull in data from everywhere, its own incredibly advanced radar, data links from other planes, maybe AWACS, satellites, and blends it all into this single, coherent, almost godlike picture of the entire battle space, stretching out for hundreds of miles.
Sees everything.
The pilot sees everything, the enemy sees nothing. The fight, if you can even call it a fight in the old sense, it's often decided before the opponent even registers a threat. It's an absolute, unparalleled advantage, not just a tech edge, it's a redefinition of combat.
So you could characterize this as the ultimate abstraction of violence.
I think that's fair.
An act of immaculate destruction, done from a place of total safety, total invisibility. There's no shared risk, no mutual recognition of danger in that classic warrior versus warrior way. The pilot becomes this kind of arbiter of fate, sitting on a distant, untouchable throne.
And that raises this really important, maybe uncomfortable question, a question that challenges our whole understanding of war and the warrior spirit. What does that kind of power, that one-sided power, do to the soul of the warrior? Think about the traditional codes, the Knight's Code, the duel of the jet ace. Those things depended on shared risk, right? On acknowledging the other guy was deadly too. A mutual recognition.
A certain honor in the danger.
Exactly. But when there's zero risk, when the opponent is just a symbol you delete from a screen with impunity, what's left of that warrior ethos? It forces us to ask about courage, honor, even the morality of it all. Are we creating something beyond our usual human framework of right and wrong?
And the machine, in this fifth generation, it seems like it's almost completely swallowed the man. The pilot isn't a duelist anymore, not just a systems manager either. He's become, what did the Ghost in the Machine call him? A custodian.
A custodian of an invisible force.
Yeah. A gatekeeper to this power that operates on a whole different level of reality, one the opponent can't even access. The final bargain seems to be made. To get this ultimate invulnerability, to become a true ghost, the human has been almost totally enclosed within the machine's logic. His consciousness is tangled up with its digital processes.
His role isn't primarily physical control anymore. It's more profound. It's to consent. To authorize the actions of a system that's so complex, so capable, that it has effectively achieved a kind of tactical godhood.
So the human is the decision maker, the ethical check.
The ethical check, the strategic oversight, the one who gives permission for the machine to carry out these pre-calculated lethal actions. He's no longer the direct operator in the moment-to-moment sense.
It's a striking image, isn't it? The body in the cockpit is almost like a biological failsafe, a last fragile connection back to an older, more vulnerable way of being, a philosophical anchor to humanity inside a system that's increasingly moving beyond it.
It really underscores how much the human role has been integrated into and maybe overshadowed by the machine's power. And the F-35 Lightning II pushes this even further. It's described not just as an air combat machine, but crucially as a machine for data, for networks, for merging human and digital perception in ways we're still trying to fully grasp.
Yeah, what's fascinating there is how pilots talk about its helmet. They call it an oracle.
An oracle.
Yeah, because it lets them literally see through the plane's airframe. Cameras outside feed directly to the helmet's visor. They can sense the whole battlefield like it's somehow etched onto their own nerves, with threats and targets highlighted in real time.
So the line between the pilot and the plane just evaporates.
Completely blurred. And with it, the line between human and machine blurs too. Maybe even the line between nation and myth.
A huge identity shift for the warrior. And where does this scripture, this story written in metal, lead from here? Well, look to the horizon, but don't look for a single plane. Look for something more complex, more distributed.
You won't see one machine.
You'll see a network, a swarm, a distributed consciousness starting to take shape.
Which brings us to the final stage, maybe the most unsettling one, the exorcism, the final step, the terrifying idea of the empty cockpit.
Yeah. The ultimate direction of fighter evolution, as our sources really strongly suggest, it points towards taking the human pilot out completely, leading inevitably to fully autonomous systems. And maybe, just maybe, a post-human age of warfare.
Post-human warfare.
The Next Generation Air Dominance Program, NGAD, it's deep in development right now, very top secret. But the thinking is it probably won't be a single type of plane. It's likely to be a system of systems.
Okay, system of systems, clarify that for our listeners, like the conductor analogy.
Exactly like that. Imagine maybe one manned quarterback aircraft, the human conductor, orchestrating and commanding potentially huge numbers of unmanned, autonomous, maybe even expendable drones. Robot wingmen.
Expendable.
Yeah. And the names they're already using for these concepts, Valkyrie, loyal wingmen, they suggest this new, almost ghostly mythology, don't they?
Yeah, not heroic knights anymore.
No, more like spectral helpers serving some unseen, maybe abstract. Well, it's a vision that completely changes the battlefield.
This is really the final step in that exorcism the sources talk about. The ghost, the human part, is finally shedding the skin completely.
Right. The ultimate aim isn't just to help the human anymore or even protect him in the cockpit. It's to remove him entirely.
Why? What's the goal?
To get rid of the limitations, the fear, the hesitation, the messy moral calculations, the physical limits of the body, to remove that unpredictable, glorious, but also fallible human soul from the cold, perfect loop of violence. It's about achieving this sterile, unblinking efficiency.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, it implies something really profound about where we're heading. We're basically architecting a new kind of mind, aren't we?
We are an artificial mind. One that hunts with terrifying efficiency, a mind that sees the sky not as beautiful or wondrous, but as a cold grid, probabilities and kill chains.
It's a chilling thought, that ultimate detachment where the human hand isn't even remotely involved in the lethal act anymore.
And what are the implications? The really big implications of that empty cockpit. What does it mean for us, for humanity, if the pilot just disappears? If the sky is filled only with machines, no faces, no stories, no fear, no capacity for regret.
It's not about human experience at all, then.
It's something entirely different.
Makes you really wonder, doesn't it? Do we lose something absolutely essential in chasing this kind of perfection? Some echo of courage, some trace of our shared humanity in that old struggle of man against gravity, man against death.
Yeah.
It's a deep question about what war even means, what being a warrior means when the warrior isn't human anymore.
Our sources suggest this might just be the inevitable path for a species kind of entering its post-human phase, where even war, that most raw, visceral human activity, gets taken out of our trembling hands and given over to algorithms.
Wow.
The cockpit, once that sacred place of the hero, it's becoming an anachronism, a relic. Soon it might just be empty, leading to what's described as the perfect weapon, a scalpel made of pure geometry slicing through the air, executing the will of a distant operator, or maybe someday, no operator at all, just making its own decisions based on its programming.
And as a machine like that passes unseen overhead, just a silent ripple in the sky, you might feel this sudden weird chill. It's the feeling that a door has been opened, a threshold crossed, from one age into something entirely new. It may be, unnerving. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We traced this long, strange journey, didn't we? From those delicate canvas biplanes, where the pilot was the heart, feeling every shudder.
Right, the age of incarnation.
Through the jet age, where speed and radar started to sever that intimate link.
The suffering.
Then the rise of computer-flown marvels, inherently unstable, where the human became more of a director, making requests to a digital brain.
The ghost in the algorithm.
And finally, this fifth generation, stealth fighters, offering tactical godhood, raising these huge questions about the warrior's soul, the meaning of combat itself.
Tactical godhood, yeah.
Leading towards the exorcism.
Leading towards the exorcism. It's been quite an evolution.
It really has. And the American fighter, as our sources keep reminding us, it truly is a mirror. It started out reflecting that basic human desire to fly, to be more than earthbound. It reflected American grit, ingenuity, courage, ambition.
But as that reflection got clearer, sharper, more powerful with each new generation, it started showing us other things too, didn't it?
Like what?
It revealed our deep obsession with control, our profound fear, maybe, of vulnerability, and this relentless drive we seem to have to replace the messy uncertainties of human judgment with the cold, hard certainties of the algorithm.
So we made a trade.
Yeah.
We traded that visceral intimacy, that shared risk of the dogfight, for the sterile perfection of hitting a target from miles away, unseen. We traded the flawed human warrior with all his courage, but also his fallibility, for the flawless silent predator, a machine operating beyond our direct senses.
It's a trade-off that's undeniably brought incredible power, incredible capability, unprecedented control over the skies, no question. But it's also a trade-off that leaves us wondering about the cost to that very human element that started this whole incredible journey in the first place.
Yeah.
The next aircraft. It's already stirring, somewhere in secret hangars. We don't know exactly what it will look like, what its destiny is. But the question isn't really if it will fly.
The real question is...
The real question, the profound one for all of us, is what will it reveal about us? About our dreams, our fears, our evolving humanity when it finally takes to the sky.
And you, our listener, you're left to wonder, maybe in the unsettling quiet that follows that thought, what part of ourselves did we lose, or maybe just transform in learning how to fly so incredibly high, so invisibly, and so powerfully?
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end, and see you in the next video.